What is real? Real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Open your mind.
Well, happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to Conversations on the Fringe. I am your host, Jeff Spike Wong. And today we have a very special guest. He is a master astrologist, as well as educator and just healer, artist, so many hats that this gentleman wear. He is George H. Lewis. Hi, George. How are you, sir?
Very well, Jeff. It's very nice to see you again. Thank you for having me back on.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to have you. And we're not going to take too much time to do a lot of diddly-daddling. We're going to jump right into it. Please kind of just, you've been on several podcasts recently talking about a lot of stuff. And I think a lot of us right now is somewhat in that heightened state of mind in regards to how the energy is flowing and basically how things are start to fruit on the things that we've kind of been hearing about. So just from a point of view, what is going on globally that we need to really understand?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. There are a couple of things. Obviously, in your introduction, the subject of truth plays a part because, with all of us truthers, it's in the namesake. We are here to dream into greater levels of frequencies of truth. We all are. And what I would say, you see, is why is it hard for people to be truthful? Why? I think there's a massive psychological defense mechanism, and a lot of that is programming. And, obviously there are questions of, in the psychology, denial, rejecting facts that cause discomfort, not wanting to sit with the discomfort. There's rationalization, explaining things away to make them less threatening. These are very human. We've all been there, me included. And then there's projection, blaming others for something that we don't want to see in ourselves. This is the basis of psychology. Now, what's interesting astrologically right now, we don't have one planet in our solar system right now as I speak to you, Jeff, in an Earth sign. So when we speak, and before we went on air, you mentioned that, if I may say, you felt a little, these weren't your words, but ungrounded, a little bit tense and maybe some anxiety. This is very true to the archetype speaking through us. Every single planet in our solar system is in either an air, fire, or water sign. And so without the Earth at the moment, that is going to make for less comfort, less grounding, but it's also going to allow for us to shift. It's almost like the energies are pushing us, entreating us, begging us, imploring us to make that leap over the threshold. Think of Campbell's hero's journey here, Luke Skywalker, whichever archetype you want. And we're kind of going on Hobbit's hero's journey. And so in a way, it is uncomfortable, but we do have, and we'll talk about this throughout the show tonight, we do have a lot of support in the astrological cosmic map at the moment, and I can go into that. But it is feeling ungrounding because we don't have the Earth. But it's okay because we need this. Us human beings at this level of coming out of the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius, and it's very real. We're entering a different part of the galaxy, and the great religions are being reviewed, revealed, rebuked. The whole polarity is coming out. Nothing is left. The big spotlight is being shone on us as a species, and we're having to do the heavy lifting spiritually.
Wow. And with that, of ourselves being in the moment of this, and we're then witnessing what's going on around our surroundings, our world, it just seems to be that we're fighting an upstream battle, and that's so frustrating. And I hear this from a lot of the viewers that we, message and have chats and so forth and meetings at Zoom, that they're expressing that it just seems to be an endless pit that we keep on falling in. So can you share a little bit in regards to what is there preparation we're missing? Is there something we should put our mindset to?
I mean, astrologically, every single outer planet has and will change signs over the course of the next 2 or 3 months. Now, because of the retrograde cycle, and I'm sure many of your listeners are somewhat familiar with astrology, planets don't just move always in one direction from our planet, from the perspective of our planet. There's something called the retrograde cycle. So if we can take that into account, by February next year, with the ingress of Saturn, Neptune into Aries, and let me also be clear, when Saturn and Neptune conjoin on the 0 point of Aries, that's the first time that's happened for over 12,000 years. Because it's that specific point in the zodiac. The beginning point of Aries is our new year, when we deal with the real calendar. It's springtime in the Northern Hemisphere. It's springtime for the vast majority of souls on our planet. And with that conjunction, Saturn is at his weakest part of the zodiac. He absolutely abhors to be in Saturn. It's in his detriment. He's in his fall. Saturn, Satan, the matrix, the Babylonian structure, whatever you want to call it, at the weakest point of power. So long. And he's conjoined Neptune, the planet of Christ consciousness, transhumanism, not transhumanism, forgive me, of transcendentalism, of connecting to the collective consciousness. I am you, you are me. Now, of course, all these archetypes have shadow expressions. Psychosis, Neptune is definitely at a low frequency. It's self-undoing, suicide, all those things. But at the high expression, it is the deep connection to self, to source. And with Saturn there, we're building new Saturn, new structures in Aries to be individualized, to be sovereign, self-masterful, and unique, childlike. And this is part of the growth of our species. It's why, for me, this time actually has been more clear than ever before, for me personally, because this is why I feel many of us are here for this point. And we have to hold the torch, hold the steady eddy. And by the way, I have no earth in my chart natally. And yet I am very stable in this regard, because this is why we're here. And I speak for many, many of us, to here to usher in, to lead, to guide, to nurture. This is a heart-centric evolution of the Homo sapiens. On the one hand, this is really about the divine majesty of our DNA, to be brought forth. And of course, what is the last quote of Q? Was what is coded in your DNA, and who put it there? Why? Mankind is repressed, and he will be repressed no more. Information is knowledge. Knowledge is power, and information is power. How do you protect your DNA? There's a war for your DNA. Protect your DNA ascension. Yeah, it's a lot, but it's very important. Read it, reread it, as I do. Study it. It's very axiomatic. It's very enigmatic. It's as all these things are. But there's masterful depth in that, and we are turning the lights back on as a species. That's what we're doing. And the planets, and I will explain this if you would like, the planets and the 3i Atlas phenomenon hugely support us in this project.
Wow. And since you brought up 3i Atlas along with this, it's what is going on, that every day we're seeing some kind of a news, some kind of a story, especially on X. X is just, off the hook with this. And we see it from so many directions and so many countries' participation in this. And it's everything from a comet to a spaceship. So what are we actually looking at?
Well, to me, and again, this is just my personal view. and listeners must take it or leave it. And this is where we find freedom. This is just my perspective. I sense it is certainly not a comet. It is an entity. I'm going to call it a thing, which is really funny, but I quite like that. I'm going to call it a thing. I mean, let's look at the cosmology and the symbology of it. Firstly, 3I Atlas, 3I, the ninth letter of the the ninth letter of the alphabet is I. 369, to know the secrets of the universe, to quote Tesla, in terms of frequency vibration, is time travel to understand 369. It's obviously the third of one of these interdimensional entities, things that have come in the last, since the timeline change of 2016. The first one had a wonderful name like Uramuma. Forgive me, I can't remember the name of the entity, and that was the 1I Atlas. Then there was 2I. It had a Russian name, and now we have 3I Atlas. I mean, to me, this is all a part of, yes, a galactic conversation, a cosmic event for sure, but it is innately benefic for me. And I can tell you why. I mean, obviously, we know the myth with the word Atlas. It's been used for books and maps, and it carries this myth, but actually Uranus has just gone back to the last degree of Taurus, right on the Pleiades system, right at the heart of the Pleiades. That, to me, isn't lost on me. I think this is a shamanistic death and rebirth, and ultimately a rebirth. I mean, when you see the 3I Atlas, when it came in, it crossed Neptune at a specific point, which coincided with a religious holiday. Same with Saturn, same with Jupiter, and then we got to Mars, which was really interesting, bringing it more to the present now because we haven't got time to go through the whole history. But let's take Mars. Wasn't it fascinating on October 1st and 2nd when the conjunction of 3I Atlas happened with Mars? That was when the Trump peace deal in the Middle East kicked off.
Wow.
And so what we're doing, you see, read the symbology of that, we're reconfiguring what Mars is. Permanent war, the permanent war machine. Mars is war. It's almost rebuking that ancient archetype and updating it and not permitting it to go towards the draconian ever again. And then, of course, it moved to its perihelion, which is the conjunction with the sun around the 28th, 29th of October. So only, a week plus ago. And many of us had quite interesting experiences then. I had a non-terrestrial visitation that day. I was driving back from somewhere in Maine, and I had this amazing bright white orb fly over me, hover above my car as I was driving. And as I was driving, I got very excited. I've had a few of these experiences before. I didn't go into fear. As a result, it stays. This is how it works with non-terrestrial benevolent activities. When you're in the heart chakra, the toroidal field is open. That sense of almost like an awakening, Kundalini awakening, there is this connection that is built between the heart and that higher entity, that higher intelligence. But the thing is, I went a bit childlike, and after about 3 or 4 minutes of enjoying the experience, I started to stick my head out of the window at 65 miles an hour, trying to get a really better look at it. And then, of course, that intelligence realized that's not good, George. Stop that, and it left me. So I continued driving safely. That's my interpretation. Now, we have just had the full moon. Literally a couple of days ago, and we're still feeling the presence of that full moon. And the full moon is in Taurus, opposite the sun is in Scorpio. And there's a very Venusian, which means Venus archetype, playing out in our collective right now. Firstly, Venus has been in Libra. Venus rules Libra. Venus also rules Taurus. We've had a full moon in Taurus, a massive, massive big moon. Relationships. Our relationships are so being challenged at this stage. And it's a question of frequency. We can't hold the frequency of those old relationships if they're no longer serving our evolutionary path. And so on a personal level now, many of us, we've all got examples of this where we're having to discard of relationships. And I even find this, like, I'm busier now on certain podcasts than I was a year ago because my frequency has improved. I was not fully baked last year or 2 years ago. And I think that's true for all of us. We all go through these journeys of up and downs, but now there's this almost massive energy towards some form of gnosis, of enlightenment, of realization that we're not alone in this galaxy. And there are benevolent entities cheering us on. And the mainstream media, run by Saturn, the lunar Saturn matrix, the Babylonian structure, call it what you will. Princess Diana called it men in grey suits. Some people call it the Illuminati. Some people call it the deep state. It doesn't matter what we label it. It is real and it's present and it's being dismantled. As I mentioned a moment ago, Saturn, that representation of that, moves into his weakest position within the entire zodiac in February. So we're aiming for that. We're working towards that. So let's open our heart chakras. Let's get our creativity going. And a big part of that is reconnection to nature and health, which we can get into, I suppose, a bit.
Absolutely. So by the way that you're explaining this to all of us, it really gives me the impression that the creator had this in a grand design, right?
Without doubt. At the same time, we are part of that grand design of where we've got into our evolutionary consciousness. There are enough people like yourself out there asking the big questions, seeking to do the work. As I talk a lot in terms of spiritual heavy lifting. The great religions of our planet are going to have to do the heavy lifting, and no one's exempt from that. The Jews have their heavy lifting with the infiltration of the Khazarian. The Christians have their heavy lifting with the distortions of the Bible as much as the beauty of it, but and the corruptions therein within the church. The Muslims have their heavy lifting with the Sharia and moving out of that type of animosity and anger. Every great faith has the heavy lifting, and this is part of what I call the Pluto in Aquarius moment. And if we continue to describe ourselves, to define ourselves through our belief systems, we are never going to be able to make the jump. And at the end of the day, we aren't our belief systems. And when we can begin to realize that we move through different beliefs, we are journeying through different experiences, and we are not our belief system, there's a huge release, huge karmic, spiritual, auric release. And that's something I encourage many of us, all of us, if we can, to at this time of transformation, not define ourselves through our ego of I believe this, and if you don't believe that, you are wrong and I am right. It's really much more about intention. If the soul is good and pure and seeks to create and unite, and because the word like symbolic means to bring together, the opposite of that is diabolic, to split asunder. That's why symbols are so important. It's very creative. We've got to stay in our creativity. And the best way to do that, if I'm going to be reductive, is to get back into nature. You see, Saturn can't control a human being when a human being is connected to nature. When the feet are barefoot on the ground, when you understand the frequency of the tree, you're drinking structured water, clean water, when you're eating organic food, which isn't synthetic. The body starts to be activated. The pineal gland gets decalcified. Of course, we have to move the fluoride out of the water. I mean, it's been deliberately done, this, but this is the Great Awakening. It's going to move fast, and we're going to awaken very fast because we're going to get the chemicals right into our body once again. We're going to get our biologies recorrected. I'm very optimistic, but it's a painful journey, of course.
Right. I think growth is pain. So there's no question that the uncomfortable situation that we're in is part of the free will of breaking into the next level. And that's the part that I think is trivial to a lot of us, that we're working really hard diligently, like you're saying, being clean, being grounded, connecting. Then we look at our world and you see so much still asleep, violently attacking each other. And it really comes down to, again, is the controlling factor of, well, whoever's been kind of had us in bondage, are they really losing power? You know, because it doesn't appear to be on the surface sometimes.
Well, having studied empires, I've always been a rather keen amateur historian. And the empire always shouts the loudest. Sorry, the emperor and the empire always screams the loudest in his last gasp.
Yeah.
And you see, for many years, this Saturnian system has been very clever in being hidden. You see, the New Age movement was masterful because it said, no, the devil doesn't exist. And the devil was something historical, it doesn't exist. So the New Age movement does all this love and light, but they can't do the shadow work.
I gotcha.
And really the journey is to know that we are the polarity. I'll give you a great example in astrology. Every single zodiac sign has an utterly Christ-like expression, and every single zodiac sign has an utterly demonic expression. The choice is ours as to how we're going to express that archetype on the 3D level. And so we really are at a time of really inner work. And those people, sadly, who are screaming the loudest, they're disembodied. Now, there are many ways to describe those people, because we're talking, on a planet of 7+8 billion people, a number of millions of people are like this. And some of the reasons are they're vaccinated up the wazoo multiple times. They eat synthetic food. They'll drink bulk water, which is chemically induced water from mains from cities with traces of arsenic, chlorine, fluoride, glyphosate. The list is long. Lead.
Yes.
And then you see all this is true, and I could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I have a lot of compassion for those people, because they have been programmed to be that way, and yet their souls aren't strong enough in this incarnation to resist. So for me, I have a lot of compassion, but it's also Archangel Michael as well, which is the other side of the polarity, is I won't allow those people to destroy the divine inheritance of mankind. Do you follow me?
Yes. 100%.
And that's where good Saturn lines are drawn, that if those types of people are choosing that way of existence, well, they probably will be permitted in the new republic that we're in the growing pains of birthing in certain parts of our country, the United States, but they are not going to have an effect on the greater part. Because this is my suspicion, is with the Q, white hat, whatever we want to label it, it's a bit like, you've got Illuminati on the other hand, you've got these amorphous terms, and of course I get criticized for using them, but we have to find a label and a way. Good people that within the military know that humans, given the tools, have the ability to rise to very high realms of consciousness. And this is where we're at. We can't allow, because of our love of empathy and democracy, a few people to spoil that for everyone.
That's right.
And so if Vermont wants to go, I use Vermont arbitrarily, Vermont wants to have 80% tax and live a relatively socialist, mask-wearing, vaccine-induced state. If the people want that, then the people are allowed to have that within that state. Now, for me, that is absolutely antithetical to my life. I will move to a state that doesn't. And the vast majority of what I believe in the United States will be representative of what our community, and I'm speculating here, but I think I'm probably right over the target, will not want to live in those conditions. And
No doubt.
we have to have the choice, but Vermont won't be allowed to dictate policy to the rest of the union. And I'm sorry to single out Vermont, but I had to find one,
Yeah. And with the current situation of, I think stress level of the financial burden that everybody is feeling the crush, that is probably the hardest for everybody to digest.
Yes.
How is this great awakening when we're getting even more pressure on our daily lives, right? We're talking about people who was making, good money, $75,000 a year to $100,000 a year, now being strapped nearly month to month to live, to survive. So it's hard to get to the so-called the awakening of this, is saying, hey, let me eat good food when they can't afford it.
Yeah, no, let me get to this, because this is very important. We really are at the end of the line. Yeah, we have to be, because it's not sustainable any longer without massive destruction to those people in terms of psyche and health, the whole 9 yards. And this has been, and I'm not defending it, I'm trying to explain how in polarity consciousness, the people who are helping orchestrate the new algorithms to support the renaissance of mankind, finding that balance of when to shift it to the quantum financial system. Now, let me go to astrology, because this is impartial, and this is also, for me, very useful. At the moment, we have a very Venus-orientated astrological map, and Venus rules money, not exclusively, but with this full moon in Taurus that we've just experienced, which plays out for the next month, is definitely one indication of getting pretty close to the end of the line of the old matrix, if you like, the fiat system.
Yes.
Now, I think a key ingredient for me, a key focus point too, would be the winter solstice and February 14th next year. Let's start with the winter solstice. The winter solstice is the entry point into the zodiac sign of Capricorn. We have a very unusual conjunction of the sun, moon, and Mars. Mars is exalted in Capricorn, by the way, on the winter solstice. So it's a new moon, and it's a conjunction of Mars and Saturn. Mars, Sun, and Moon. That's very unusual because it coincides with the conjunction of 3i Atlas. And 3i Atlas comes closest to our planet then. And for me, what 3i Atlas is doing, this is pure speculation, it is totally reconfiguring the financial system, which is Capricorn. Capricorn is largely finance. If you look even at the tarot card, you see Baphomet, or you see that figure, half man, half woman figure with the humans naked at the base of the throne, chained. The chains around each of their throats, but actually the chains are loose, but they know not how to take them off. Think Allegory of the Cave by Plato. There's a sense of support out of an old enslavement usury system on the one hand into a system that is going to support we the people. I pray genuinely for all those people, so many of us who are struggling financially, that we are very close to the switcheroo. The next date is interesting. I mentioned Venus, is February 14th, because it's on that day, Jeff, that we have the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune at the 0 point of Aries, and that's the first time that's happened in 12,000 years. Wow. That's real goosebumps. That's real goosebumps. Right. Anyone who knows anything about astrology is going wow, and I keep going wow, because if that's not a signature for a massive shift, then I'm talking a whole load of bunk.
Well, then this is the part that's hardest, I think, for a lot of common thoughts to grasp, because this has been debunked and not taught to us in the value that it exists. And if you look throughout history, as I've spoken to you previously, that the kings and the royalties has always had stargazers. They went into battle, they went into conquering, they went into well-being of their own land and people using stargazing. So how did all of a sudden, somewhere around the last 200 years, absolutely got removed? I mean, was this the Illuminati plan that kind of came to America and went, hey, you know what? Let them have the new land. Let them pretend they have freedom. We'll change it from the bottom up.
I mean, I love my history. I mean, gosh, you've given me a wonderful segue into the perversion of reality, the perversion of science. I mean, gosh, I'm itching to say, well, the Titanic was no accident. It was a massive satanic ritual. And it was always about planning. Even back in 1910, a secret meeting took place on the infamous Jekyll Island. You know it, I know it. Yes. And the attendees were Paul Warburg, Jacob Schiff, and Rothschild's representatives, and Paul Aldrich, I think, if I recall correctly. Anyway, a few years after 1910, we had 1912. The Titanic set sail from Southampton to New York. On board that ship were 3 men who opposed the central banking system, and they were amongst the 3. Well, Jacob Astor was the richest man in the world, and then Benjamin Guggenheim and then Isidor Straus, very, very wealthy, and they opposed the central banking system. They all died on that ship. Interesting. And then straight after that, ships death or sinking, we have the rollout of the 1913 Federal Reserve Act is passed. And it goes on and on and on. And you can go back to 1871 with the incorporation of the United States into a corporation. After the Civil War, both sides were exhausted. Both sides were funded by the Rothschilds, by the European bankers, London and Paris, boom, funding it, getting back in through the back door. I speak as a Brit. At the end of the day, I'm an American citizen. If your listeners, don't let my accent perturb you. This is really about freedom. It always has been about freedom. And where is the old Atlantis? In America.
Interesting.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, just speak to the Smithsonians. Just speak
Mm.
to the Smithsonian and all the artifacts that have been confiscated from the bottom of that big copper mine that you call the Grand Canyon.
Right, right. And that story has been coming out more and more, I would say, than the last decade. Prior to that, there was no mention of it whatsoever.
So if we fast forward even a little bit, because obviously we haven't got time to all the history, and I love teaching some of this stuff on my academy and privates and small groups. JFK signed his executive order, 11110. I haven't probably got that right, whatever it was, to issue silver-backed dollars.
Yeah.
And Gaddafi proposed a gold-backed African currency. And look what happened to him. Saddam Hussein tried to do the same thing in Iraq. I suspect someone in Germany tried to do that too in the 30s. Who knows? Anyway, moving on. It's all very fascinating when we start to question. And you see, I say this time and time again. I don't sit here on my high horse. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. And what I find out, I'll share with you. And I'll come back next year and probably debunk a whole bunch of stuff and build upon it. Isn't that a civilization? Isn't that creativity? Isn't that the essence of the human being?
Right. Absolutely.
So just to bring that full circle.
Yeah.
Pluto in Aquarius, Pluto, transformation, Aquarius belief systems. If we can, as a species, as an individual, take a deep breath and not define ourselves through our belief systems, we can find radical freedom. Yes, the money coffers are hard at the moment. Yes, it's intense. And my heart goes out to all of us in that sense who are struggling. But we have each other, we have our creativity, and we are birthing a new earth, and it is going to happen pretty soon. It has to. And the other thing is, lastly, people like Candace Owens, even if her archetypal temperature might be too much for some people, she's asking real questions. And the Charlie Kirk thing, and I'm not going to go into the speculation of, because I've looked at that in many ways, but the point is more people are asking questions than before. More people are waking up to realize how controlling the system has been, how controlling foreign countries, specifically one in particular, has had a hold over not just the United States, but over Western global civilization. And I just love light being shone on the dark, because a civilization's based on Tom, Dick, and Sally all doing their unique bit to shine light on the dark. And so the dark has nowhere to go. It gets eviscerated. It kind of evaporates because the light does its own magic. It creates its own reality. And the old Babylonian structures have nowhere to go.
Yes. Yes. And that's the greatness of what we're going through. And I feel the same within my heart. One of the things that too is that it really baffles me that how the selected group share a thought with me. Is this just one group, or is there small pockets of groups that somehow aligned to create this control structure?
So I suspect, let's talk about the Masonic lodges.
Yeah.
I suspect, in fact, but I can't definitely say I know because I'm not in there. But in order, the 33-degree Mason isn't the highest. It's very senior. But it's once you go above that the corruption up until recently has been pretty universal. You see, the blackmail cult has so successfully permeated the higher echelons of our civilization in order to control it, because it's the best way to control it when you have really dark stuff on people and you put people in situations in order to do dark stuff. I mean, this is where, again, the Christ compassion has to play out to an extent, because so many people have been born into these systems, and the cleansing is going to take quite some time. And in some ways, I'm very blessed that I sit here and talk with you tonight, that I don't in this incarnation have to be responsible for that type of justice firsthand. Justice must be done.
Yeah.
But justice won't necessarily always look like what we expect it to look like. And there are
Right.
many reasons for that, because there's so much complexity. I feel my job really is to boost the soul incarnate. We are a soul. We are souls having a human experience. We're not just meat, flesh bouncing around here in a sort of chaotic way of, if you like, Descartesian minimalism. Absolute nonsense. That's very deliberately done to separate us from source. And yes, there are merging of powers. I think, if I'm going to be reductive, I think the merging of the Jesuit and Khazarian power structures has been formidable in its ability to manifest darkness. But I also think behind those groups are higher non-terrestrial entities as well, and that's something where Christians, Muslims, practicing Jews, religious people have to get a grip of that. And 3i Atlas, I think, will help in that regard to reconstitute, reaffirm, and rebuild the religions in a way that are supporting of humanity today. What I would say is more practice, less doctrine. The judgment factor within the religions is out of control.
Yeah.
It's just out of control. And I can see it. I work in the healing arts. When I have patients who come to me, obviously very few fixed people will come to me because they're just not open. But the turbo cancer isn't just because of the 5 jabs. The turbo cancer can sometimes come because the body, soul, aura is so fixed in its ego of self-definition that it basically kills the psyche from within.
Right. So the mindset is key in regards to the healthy, of course, good life, good living. And this is where some of us are now coming through that door, if you will, and start to recognize how important it is to have all the components to come back in. And then now when we're start to acknowledge this for ourselves, we of course want this for everybody else.
Of course.
Right. We want to have the great society. So this is a part that the faction, like you brought in, non-terrestrials in control. Are they somewhat fleecing and putting a group of us to sleep, and some of us just can't get out because they're just too deep in it? Because and the things that I say this is because I see just how mindless on some of the responses of these people who are against our movement to grow past of the third density Earth, which is the norm of what they're dealing with. And it seems to be the dark arts draws them, and they feed from that.
Well, I mean, God, I can answer it in many ways, but let's take music. Music's a universal language.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been some time ago now when the British and the Germans and the Americans shifted the frequency from 432 to 440. 432, again, think Tesla 369, adds up to 369. 440 is Saturn, 448, Saturn. It's a Saturn number. It's totally different energetic.
Yes.
It's not real A. It's a distortion of real A. And that's been the mainstay of music until relatively recently. Now, more of us. I mean, I've tuned my piano to 432 probably for 12 years, but I didn't do it in my teens and 20s and 30s.
Yes. Right.
So anyway, the point is, music's been distorted. You only have to look at the great performers.
Right.
I mean, if you only have to be half awake to know that it's so ritualistic, and it's very deliberately done to create some form of mass psychosis, some form of mass control. Absolutely. I mean, if I was the Dark Lord, I'd be doing that through music the entire time, because I know the power of music. I know the power to heal. So I know the power to split asunder.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the other thing is we have to also get a grip on the concept of inversion. 666 isn't inherently evil. The pentagram isn't inherently evil.
Right.
But when it's used for those purposes that we've got so used to it being used for against us,
Right.
like algorithms, it's very negative. part of our release as a species is learning, and it hasn't happened yet, even with ChatGPT. I was on it for the first time only last week. I've hardly used it yet. It isn't able to answer some of the big questions yet. So it's still programmed against conspiracy. In my limited experience, I'm sure other people might be able to shed some light on that for me. We're moving through the different stargates. It's going to take some time. I mean, this is as we enter the age of Aquarius, but it's unstoppable. I will say that. It is unstoppable.
Right.
Is there going to be fallout? Yes. My job, our job is to awaken more people through our own immanence, not just by words, but just by being it and showing the bountifulness of when you drink structured water. I mean, I haven't got it now, but I was using a blue cobalt glass early today, put it in the sun. I distilled my water, put it in the sun, and I create vitamin B12 because it goes through the blue frequency. And then green light does something different. You know, we're all reconnecting to these truths. And that's part of the awakening. But it is chaotic because a lot of people are stuck in huge amount of pain, suffering, and anger.
Yes. And for those people who is wanting to change, the question is how, right?
Yeah. So then I suppose it's back to breath work and nature, because if you start to breathe deeply, as I call it, the Buddha belly breath, you end up releasing the fixed mentality to a greater extent. You end up being open through the breath to more malleability. A lot of mankind has become incredibly fixed in its ideas, partly because of fear, and that's a program from the Matrix. I mean, Neo in the Matrix is a pure documentary, but you and I know that.
Yeah. More and more every day.
Because it was internal for him. I mean, that was his whole journey. When he realized inside of himself, then the Matrix was cracked.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the interesting thing, that everybody is now recognizing that we have a lot of evidence from our entertainment, from our movies or television programs, that has been dropping us hints. And again, this is, of course, supposedly that the so-called asking permission, freedom of will bit, where they can go, well, if you're not going to acknowledge it, then you're just going to let us do whatever we want to your mindset and your perspective.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because symbolism will be their downfall, as we were told in one of the Q posts. It is all there. All the evidence, now we are sufficiently awake or awakening, is there in Hollywood, in the media, in what they've done. And then, of course, the other Q post was, be aware of false prophets. I am not a prophet. You are not a prophet. We are not prophets. Focus on the mission. I mean, that's very cryptic, but we have to be aware of false prophets. And I'll just give you a clear example. Everything that I say today, if it resonates with you, the listener, take it. But if it doesn't, please don't take it. Ignore it. Move on. Find your own way, because it's your journey. And the real awakening is no one should stop you being creative. There are universal taboos. We're not going to have a nation, a country, a world of satanic and child ritual abuse anymore. We're not. But beyond those heinous crimes and, you know, certain covenants that we have amongst our fellow human beings, we should be allowed to explore our own creativity uniquely. And that is, to me, that is a truth. And if any religion doesn't support that, to me, that is not godly.
That's right. And with the giving of the heart, I really think this is where we've been distracted and moved on with it. I think the connection with the heart is much more in sense of us moving forward into the new dimension, new density of understanding than, let's say, just our thought. And by the way that we've been trained or indoctrinated throughout this sequence of life, this time frame, it's, I think now I actually see the momentum was harder than before, let's say 100 years ago, because we are reaching today the apex of the Great Awakening. And they already knew 100 years ago that if we don't do something
Yeah.
and encapsulate this entire planet, then we're not going to get that chance.
No, I 100% believe that, because the sun was a different color when we were children, and many of us have commented on this.
Yeah.
And I know that the Vatican, the City of London, and the great powers, whether it's dimming the light, literally dimming the sun, or the chemtrails, it's all been about suppression of consciousness. And really the biggest one, which we all can get behind and understand, is fluoride. I mean, putting fluoride literally throughout the population, even into the toothpaste, even into the water, has had a massive, massive effect on allowing greater limitation on human the psyche and activation.
Yes.
Our spiritual gifts have been much subdued due to fluoride. And I honor and have great respect for RFK in his way. Is such a hard job, and he's doing an amazing job. He really is. And he's up against so much darkness and misunderstanding, and not just corruption, but deep propaganda.
Yeah.
Where a lot of good human beings have no clue. So I think in a way we have to be gentle with ourselves. That's probably one of the big messages for me is observe everything, but don't get too caught up in everyone else's story.
Right.
Stay in your own creativity, whatever that looks like. It could be tango dancing, it could be painting a watercolor. It doesn't matter what is creative for you, because it's really about radiance. I love the word radiance. It's similar to brilliance. It means remembering why your soul came here. And it's only through that remembrance that you become more attractive, because you begin to share your gifts with the world. And the more aligned you are with your soul contract, literally the more you glow, the more brilliant you become. It's like your aura is polished. And of course, in the ancient Vedic traditions, you've got the Tejas, and they speak about literally the spiritual glow that comes from the Dharma of living your soul's path. And I think in Christianity, we call it grace. Your aura will literally expand, not because you're chasing the attraction, but because your energy becomes more magnetic. That's Venus, actually. And Venus is about love. And I'm not just talking the passion with the partner. I'm talking, it can be that. It's the love that we emanate, literally the magnetic, because you're so aligned with who you are. And that true attraction isn't about pulling people towards you, but it's about radiating from within so powerfully that what is meant to find you will never miss.
Right.
It is a magnetic.
Yes. The power of attraction. There's definitely that. I am 100% right behind you on the expression of self through the creative, the artistry. And of course, the artistry comes through because we are connected.
Yes.
And that's the empowerment of the fueling of the soul that I think most people miss. This is a part that I harp onto a lot of parents, especially when they're raising children, about developing their kids, playing piano, playing music. Well, this is not as important as them going to learn about math or going to do something else away from the creative self. And I think there's, because of indoctrination, that people are not recognizing the importance of that.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, you see the detoxification within our physical bodies is going to be so powerfully important, because so many people are so parasitically embedded. And parasites, of course, I mean, this is where, as an alchemist, I've been clear on this for many, many years, that disease, parasites, any form of imbalance isn't just physical. Yes, that's the physical earth manifestation, but it's also, we're 98% water on molecular level. It's also the emotions carry parasites. And then we've got, the mental, which is the air, and those types of parasites. And then at the highest is the fire, the spirit, spiritual parasites, attachments. We have to be very mindful that these all play a role. So one of the things is as we detox, as we go through these hoops, when we become more conscious, we end up realizing that the evolution that we go through will cost you the relationships that once were built on your stagnation. And so some people love the version of you that never changes, because they can bitch with you about someone, they stay in a low frequency. There's a codependency, right?
That's right.
But when you start to grow, When you stop playing small and you start remembering who you truly are,
Yeah.
you become a mirror, to that person, and they can't face it. So not everyone can come with you because you've raised your frequency, you're on a different path, and then you reconnect with more soul family or the people you need to meet at that time to aid you and aid them. It's mutual, it's co-creative in your expansion. And so sometimes that expansion can create major issues with like family, because if the family is choosing one path and you're choosing another. So this is part of our existence. So I really encourage more people to look to soul family, and I have to speak to that personally. I'm not going to go into it, but I've had a member of my family who I love very dearly won't speak to me because of what I stand for and my views
Right.
on the vaccines. And I know I'm one of millions of us who have those experiences in our own unique way. And that is the bravery, and it's tough to speak the truth, but we must do it because we're helping our planet in that ascension process. Because if we were silent, that's a way of just allowing the tyrannical to really take.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We cannot allow them just take our free will because we are non-compliant and ignore. And that seems to be the consensus of how they've been operating. Here, we're going to give you something. It's like handing out candy. That Pinocchio bit, come, and then we get into the wagon and we're going to go to the island. It is just so even from the minutia of the small to the global of the big, it's that we've
Yeah.
been baited to come in to believe how to live a full life by using greed, ego, dark forces, and feed ourselves off of that entertainment. And I've learned this now more than ever before. The entire business of entertainment is purely structured from a dark energy.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because we talk about a television, to tell a vision or tell a lie vision.
Right.
All these things were breaking down the English language, which is very, very manipulated. I mean, spellings, I could go on all night. But I
Yes.
think you're right, because knowledge really has to be shared and power must be questioned. It's very healthy. And I think, it's not my quote, it's coming to me now, silence is the greatest ally of control.
Yes.
And awareness, here's it, and the awareness is the beginning of resistance.
Right.
I don't know who said it, but that's quite on mark, isn't it?
It sure is. It hits right in the core.
Yeah.
Yeah. George, you're incredible, man. I always love talking with you. You bring so much insight, so much light into our lives. I appreciate you so much. Tell us how we can find you and your work.
Well, thank you, Jeff. My website's georgelewis.com. I mean, that's the best way to get me. I'm actually going to be doing up my website. I'm not very technical. I've got a wonderful friend who's going to help me next month, but it's all up there. So georgelewis.com. My email's georgelewis@me.com, which is the old iCloud one. And my Instagram's George H. Lewis. That's the best way. And I'm always available. I still love doing private readings, actually. I don't think I will ever stop. I think I learn, if my wisdom comes from anywhere, I think it's I read for minimum 10 people a week.
Wow.
And the charts every chart is utterly unique. And the soul contract is always quite clear to me. Of course, it can be expressed in many different ways, which is the beauty of a life, of freedom. But there's so much in it. It keeps me sharp reading contract, the natal chart, because
Yes.
one's trying to offer a way for them to see themselves more clearly. And in some ways, a best reading is I'm telling you, the native, what you already know, but you've just temporarily forgotten because of the trauma of the 3D.
Well, and that's the so-called the door that we're just kicking down. I mean, I believe at this time there's more of us than ever in regards to understanding who we are, what we are capable of doing. And now we're not turning back. I know that, that.
Yeah.
And we hope the audience out there really embrace what we're sharing here, because we need more people. We need more mindset.
It's true, but you know something, the truth about humanity is when that door is open, when that truth comes down, you can't forget it. And that's the wonderful thing. And it's painful, but when we have that realization, it is the great epiphany. And forward march we do, and we're doing it in greater numbers, and we have each other.
Yes, we totally have each other. And that's the, like you were saying, the soul family aspect of it. I am more appreciative of understanding that now than ever, because previously, you know, you have your immediate family and blood's thicker than water and all that blah, blah, blah. And I get that. But if someone in the family that's your blood relative is absolutely refusing to play ball, you can't force them. You know, you have to allow them to learn their way and their path. And I've also come to a realization a lot of people just has been traumatized at a such young age that they compartmentalized that they're not connecting because of that.
Well, I mean, that's another conversation in the sense of the
Sure
depth.
is.
No, but it's a great one. And, you know, you should probably interview Dr. Christian Northrup on that. But the biological trauma of the incoherent births, the forceps, the lack of midwifery, the lack of feminine nurturing care when the child is either in the womb or coming out is just, to me, so I don't know. I could speak on that for hours, but that's another conversation. And when we can move beyond that trauma, the planet is going to go exponentially into a high dimensional consciousness.
Agree. Yeah. Let's close with this. And this is something that I think is very important for a lot of people, which is financial, right? This, first and foremost, I really truly believe that the Great Britain, the London, the whole money system was controlled through the royal family. Recently, of course, we had Prince Andrew being stripped of all his titles. And we see the visits with Donald Trump, with Charles, and you can just see the subservient point of view from the royal family. It just seems like the whole thing has shifted. And this is, to me, almost like an indicator that the old financial system is absolutely going away.
I mean, no question about it. From our flag here in the United States, it has no longer got the gold around it. I mean, you know, the city of London, none of that silver and gold now is there. It's all in America. I am absolutely, even though there are aspects of the art of war playing out, which make me very uncomfortable with the Trump administration. We don't need to go into that. I know all your listeners know what I'm talking about. Notwithstanding that, I am deeply excited by the United States getting her sovereignty back for the first time since 1871. And you can go back even to 1812, the war. You know, I mean, it was not very long a time that the United States was truly free. And this time we're going to do it. And I mean, there's so much to talk about. I mean, yes, I can talk about individuals from the royal family. That's really inconsequential. Is it a much bigger deal than Prince Andrew? Of course it is. You know it. I know it. And in some ways, it's about allowing Baphomet or Capricorn to wither on the vine. I mean, let me answer it more astrologically. So William Hope in 1742 wrote that amazing prophecy from his little room in Edinburgh about a man called George Washington who would lead the Americas in a new republic, a new Atlantis. And that was 44 years before it happened. And then again, Kim Clement, 10 years before Trump, there will be a trumpet and a trumpeter. There'll be a man of faith, a man of God, but not of the book. I don't quote it correctly. And he will come in and he will be loved by all the natives, and he will be standing for our people. It's part of the great prophecy. The Hopis know it. The Peruvian shamans know it. We, the people, know it. And little England, and I was born there, and the real English are wonderful, but they have been utterly hurt by the National Health Service, the National BBC, the British Broadcast. It's massive control. It's a country ruled by Saturn. Saturn rules Capricorn. Britain's a Capricorn country. Isn't it interesting that the United States, when she was founded, she rebuked Saturn. She said, no, we will be founded in the constellation of Cancer. Not only was she founded on July 4th, 1776, in absolute opposition to Saturn in Capricorn, she also had the great benefics of Venus and Jupiter conjoined her in the sun. And she had Sirius to really hit it off on conjunction. You can't make that up. That is such a powerful, powerful cosmic alignment that America has vast destiny, and she will step into her destiny properly for the first time in this iteration.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And that is just so exciting. I think everyone who's out there who's going through some hardship, doom and gloom and so forth, here's the optimism right here. Here's the ray of light, the light at the end of the tunnel. It's all going to be great and fantastic. George, thank you again so much for being here. And I look forward to seeing you every time. And be well, be good. And hopefully we could do this again on Conversations on the Fringe.
Delighted. Anytime, Jeff. God bless you and many thanks.
Thank you. And everyone have a fantastic Friday. And we'll see you. Don't forget, like and subscribe, of course. And I will see you next on Conversations on the Fringe. Be well, people.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation. I want you to get mad.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
These people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!